Welcome back, everyone, to Red G Fox. Yes. All right. So today it's episode breakdown. This one has some scenes I really love, and it is TV or not TV. And hold that thought, as we know it's from Shakespeare. We'll save that for a fun fact, an interesting little twist on the original Steptoe and Son as well. But today, yeah, this one's really funny. It has there's always more than top 5 funny, right? When we watch this show, we love it. So with the summary, I'll go through it. Let me go through a brief summary, then we're going to break it down as we go. I like to do it like this. I mean, it's fun, right? We talk about it. I try not to talk about every little thing or quote every little line, because you might as well just go watch the episode. But still, it's fun to just talk with other people and share thoughts on here in the comments, what we like, what we don't like, what could they improve on. But the summary in this one is basically, Fred wants a new TV. And Lamont's like, you don't need a new TV, so you can sit around with your buddies, getting drunk and hanging out all day. And he needs a new car, and that's more important. And Lamont's doing a big chunk of the work. So I kind of have to side with Lamont on this. I feel so bad for him in this episode, as he really gets swan hog. What's the word? He gets tricked, and Fred does it to him again. So that's the brief summary about the whole episode. It's pretty quick, but we're going to go through it like we do on our show, which I love to do. Sometimes part of me always feels like, you know what? I talk too much, I'm sorry. But if you enjoy it, you stay and watch the whole thing, or you'll skip to parts you do want. Remember, we do have fun facts. We have top 5 funny throughout the episode, but at the end we always have fun facts and familiar faces, and there is a little this episode. Some have a bunch, some have a little. So without further ado, let's get to it. It opens up with Lamont, and it's rare, and it's early in the series, but when you are a Sanford and Son diehard and you've seen hundreds of episodes, when there are over 100, you are not used to them starting in some weird situation, like when they started NBC Studios and they're at the studio for real. And here it opens up with Lamont, and he's actually at a real car lot buying a car, which looks pretty cool. It's a convertible, and it's great. It's great that they call back to like when I see this, the first thing I think of is when Fred could have won a convertible on Wheel and Deal, and he's like, oh, he could have been parked up there on Mulholland Drive, with the the top down, him and the hair blowing through his girlfriend, him and his girlfriend. Great scene. So I think of that instantly when I see that, and Lamont's actually going to get one right now. So he buys the car, we know he pays for it, and then it gets to, anytime I'm smiling right now a lot more because I think of Melvin, how funny this episode is. Melvin and Fred are sitting watching TV, a Humphrey Bogart movie, and Lauren Bacall's in it. Remember, whenever I see them in the scene, the names just pop up instantly. I don't even have to go watch the episode. It'll be there for eternity because we've seen it so many times. But they're there, and the TV's not working, right? And we know, if you are old enough, or even, if you're old enough, I am. I remember I had the TV where you had the adjusters in the back, and I was a little kid. I didn't know, but sometimes you adjust them, you could fix the lines, the vertical. As Fred says, the horizontal line or the vertical line, you can adjust those, and you can adjust the color, the brightness. And so he goes back there to fix it. Melvin does. And he's trying to, and Fred's like, hey, that line that does, and this is a top 5 funny, the whole scene with the TV as they're talking about it. This whole scene breakdown is top 5 funny. As he's going through it, he's like, the horizontal line and the vertical line and the hold line, all those. He's all forget all that and just hit it with your fist. And the way that Fred says it is so funny. So Melvin goes there, and then he goes bang, bang, bang. And right away you're like, he said hit it, not pound it a bunch of times. And then Fred goes, he's like, man, you can't do anything right. He's all, I said hit it once with your fist, not beat the crap out of it. So he gets up and he tries to fix it. And I love when he's like, now you got 8, because remember Melvin had said earlier, it looked like 2 Humphrey Bogarts, it was all messed up. And so he's like, now we got 6 Humphrey Bogarts and 4 Lauren Bacalls. And he goes, it looks like there's supposed to be a love scene, and it looks like they're playing a basketball. It's so funny as heck. And if you've been there, right? If you're a 20-year-old watching this, I guarantee you have not experienced that. But if you have and you're old enough, you can envision exactly what the TV looks like. And that TV's pretty much done, but they do their best and they tap it and it completely goes out. So he's like, hey man, you got to get, Melvin's son, you got to get, and I like this episode a lot, probably because Melvin's in it multiple times and not just for like a 5-second clip. But he's like, you got to get Lamont to buy you new color television. And then they bring up Arthur Matthews. And I'm going to go to that. I got to go to that. Arthur Matthews, that's a fun fact I was going to say. There's only 2. I'll save the other one for the end. But the fun fact with Arthur Matthews is we know instantly in season 2, in the card charts, one of the best. In our poll on my other channel, that was voted the #1 episode of season 2. And how could you argue with it? It is so stinking funny and clever and well written and well performed. And it's like one of the holy grails of Sanford and Son. And in that one, we get to see Skeeter Matthews. He's all, I bet I know who you are. You're ugly Matthew. I mean, Skeeter Matthews, or Arthur Matthews' son. So it's so funny. So when we hear Arthur Matthews, now we get it's almost like a prequel, only because we know the end. But it's like a prequel. We're like, this is the first time Arthur Matthews is mentioned, and ugly Arthur Matthews. And then they start capping on his wife, clowning on his wife, how ugly she is, and his ugly wife. And they're like, that's why his son needed to buy him a color television. And all I do is I think of the actor who played him. I just think of anyways, he's in later episodes also. Remember when he's trying to check for his heart? Remember he saying, hey, you need to get your heart checked. How a lot of blacks die from heart attacks at such an early age. That same actor, he's also in What's Happening, Raj's dad. When we get to that, he'll be one of the familiar faces. But I keep thinking of him buying his dad and mom a TV, and they're like, his wife's so ugly, he needs to watch a color TV. So he's doing it, and Fred's like, you're right, I do deserve a color TV. And then Lamont comes home. And Lamont's like, he knows once he sees his Melvins there, nothing got done with work. And he keeps saying, I need a color television. And he's like, you ain't getting no color television, so you could sit around here all day up there, just drinking, hanging out with your friends, nothing getting done. And another top 5 funny is when Melvin tries to get, and he goes behind Lamont. And he's like, I need it with a big screen and a remote and color. It's hilarious. See Melvin back there grinning the whole time trying to do it, and you see him, he's coaxing Fred and helping him so he remembers what to ask for when he says how to get the TV and he wants it. And Lamont's like, no. He said, besides, I got myself a new car. And now Fred's not happy about it. He's like, what the, how selfish is this? And you want to sit there and try to defend Fred, but in the end you're like, I think maybe Fred should be happy with a maybe black and white TV, because I had one as a kid, and you know what? I watch those old monster movies. I can watch shows that you like in black and white, and maybe you should have said, hey, fine, get your car, give me just an old black, I just need something to watch TV and hang out with Melvin, or soon to be Bubba and Grady and etc. But that's all he didn't. He wanted the nice new color TV with the remote. And at the same time you go, you know what, Fred has put up a lot. He's 65, man. And remember, as we see Lamont goes African, she said your parents' years should be beautiful. And he's like, this dummy made my later years one cold blizzard. So you see both sides. I think they should have got maybe a color TV with no remote, and then maybe not such a nice car for Lamont. And it's funny when you see the price of the car, you're like, $550? Oh my gosh. And I know pay raises were lower, but Lamont sometimes can bring in $50 a week, maybe $50 a day, and you're like, he can get that car in less than 2 months. I can't save up for no car in 2 months nowadays. How crazy it is. And Samuel's watching and he's like, wait, that's it? Is that like the down payment? I'm like, no, the car was $500. He's like, that's all you had to pay for a car? And I'm like, I know. I go, that's how it was back then. It was the homes too. Everything was better back in the 70s and before then. So then now they're sitting down and Melvin's like, well, I'll see you later. And he starts to go, no, you don't have to leave, Melvin. Yes, Melvin, if you want to leave, you can leave. No, you don't tell my friend to leave. And he's not really telling him to leave. Lamont's just saying, hey, you can leave. And Melvin's going back and forth. And he's like, hey, I'll let you guys figure it out. I got to go. And he takes off. So I'm always bummed when Melvin leaves, because he's only got a limited time. It's one thing with Bubba or Grady or with their other friends or even Esther. But when it's Melvin, you're like, man, this is it. This is what sucks. So good seeing him. He will return in this episode. So now they're talking about Fred's not happy. And he's saying, hey, look what Arthur Matthews did. And now he's like, oh, so now you're saying I'm not as good as Arthur Matthews said. He's like, he's a con man, a gambler, nothing but a troublemaker. And he's like, oh, I'm not as good as him. And they're arguing back and forth. And Fred's like, Lamont's like, and he's pleading, look, man, I want to take girls. And that's what it comes down to. And like I said, I don't blame him. How are you going to take girls on the date in that truck? It stinks. It's old. It's run down. It's not exactly the date machine. And that's what Lamont wants, as we knew that as soon as he got that car, man, he called and was like, hey, I'm ready to go on a date. And he wants to let the hair. Fred's like, he's like, you want that, let a girl know if she wants the wind to blow through her, take her wig off and hold it out the window. It paints such a visual right there when Fred says that. And then Lamont's like, hey, you can use the car too. And Fred's like, oh, what am I going to do? Pop the top down and let the hair blow through my scalp? I know what that's all about. It's like, what are you going to do? Let the hair blow through my scalp? So that's another top 5 when they're going back and forth. And so Fred's pissed. He's like, that's it, whatever. And so he leaves. And Lamont's like, hey, man, he's going to get a date. And then they open up later where Lamont comes back and he's got the car and he's excited, as well he should be, right? Who isn't? And he's jumping up, hey, come look at this, pop, pop. And he's going through every room right at the house, and Fred's not around. And then he comes out and there's Swanee and Smitty. And limited time for Swanee. I want to say, isn't Swanee just season 1? I know there's Jonesy. When he comes, I think he might be 2, possibly season 3, somewhere in there. But he's only in a few times, maybe even once or twice. But we only get a little bit more Swanee before Hoppy comes along. Maybe Swanee, I'd have to look it up. I can't remember. They all blend, right? They all blend when you see them. I just know, I think Hoppy probably comes in season 2, because I'm trying to remember when he first does. We'll come across it soon. We're almost at the end of season 1. We just got, what is this? Blank, blah, blah. I think we got 2 to 3 more episodes, and we're done with season 1, and then we'll be on to season 2. So anyways, back to this. He sees Swanee and Smitty, and they're like, oh, and he sits there, he's like, first, Lamont, Swanee, as he is. This is the one thing, it's funny, but at the same time, he's not the kind of cops I would want to hang out with. Not that I hang out with cops, who hangs out with cops unless you're a family. But Fred, in this is where it's like, hey, the cops were cool. But Swanee's so stiff, and he's like, first, I need you to know not to flip out. I need you to calm down. I need you to stay calm. And he's making it where he's building up, and then Lamont, rightfully so, and it's top 5 funniest reaction. He's like, all right, I'm calm. What's going on? He's going absolutely berserk. And he tells him, your father's in the hospital. And he's like, yeah, he's not feeling good. And he's like, well, what happened? He's got amnesia. Do we really believe that for a second? Knowing Fred, knowing how he loves soap operas and the drama with that, and that we really believe, we don't. Even Lamont's kind of like, okay, he's in a hospital. He was wandering the streets, didn't know his name. He got taken to hospital and has amnesia, right? And now, I'm trying to remember, because I just remember, I know maybe he finds out amnesia at the hospital, but he was incoherent. He didn't know what was going on. So now Lamont rushes over to the hospital, and he comes there, and in comes the doctor, and the doctor's like, you know what? He talks to him. He's like, hey, hold on. He paints the picture for him and tells him what's going on, what's happening, even psychological things. And he's so funny. The doctor's so funny the way he's so serious, but he's got like a very calm demeanor, and he's like, yeah, oh, this poor guy, and then he's like, does Arthur Matthews mean? And something, you hear Fred on the other side of the curtain where he's like, oh, something about a color TV, and the mom's trying to tell him, and he's like, that's probably it. You're his son, you're the breadwinner. Fred, he feels like he's useless and he's pointless and he's past his life. And he's doing all these, and Lamont's like, oh, are you the psychologist? Are you? And he's like, no, I'm the nose ears doctor. And he says it so deadpan, where he's just like, no, I'm this, I'm the nose. The way he does it is so funny. It's a top 5 funny the way he delivers it. And then he's all smiling about it, and he's all casual. And so he gets to go see him, and then Fred's got the beer. That lets us, we already know as an audience, we're not falling for it. But then when you see Fred drinking the beer and burping and hiding the beer under his thing, and he's like, oh, come on in. And he sits there and he's like, hi, do you know who I am? And he tries to talk to him. He's like, do you know who I am? It's me. And he goes, no. And Fred totally plays it off where he's got this no idea. He finds out he has amnesia, and he doesn't recognize him, and he thinks he's like, are you here to do color TV? And he keeps popping in color TV, anything he can. And then the best gag throughout the whole scene in this is where he sits up, and he's always like because his bed goes up and down, and he sits up, and he's encouraged, like, oh, color TV, and he's like, no, and he's like, he lays back down, and he looks like and then he sits back up, and then he goes, oh, and it's good. It's so good. It's so well done that you can, without saying a word, the emotion Fred is showing back and forth. And Lamont's like, hey, you know what? Think of it. And he's trying to get him, and he's like, think of it. You got your home, and you got the couch. Remember the room we sit in and we eat and we hang out. And he's painting such a good picture of like, hey, this is what it is. And he's trying to get his dad to come back to who he is and the happy times. And then he's like, and you know what sits right there? And he's like, a color TV, a color television. And he's like, no. And he's ready to go. And Lamont wants to leave on a positive note. So he's like, don't. He said, do you think you know who I am? Don't say it. Don't say it. And then he feels bad. Lamont totally falls for the thing, feels bad. Next time we see him as Fred lays back down, and he's saying, and remember, he doesn't want to come home. He's like, why would I want to come home? You know, remember the doctor had mentioned they found him in the fire escape, messing with the nurses, trying to hook up with the nurses. They're going after them. So he's like, no, I don't want to go. And he likes it there. And so then Lamont's like, well, he obviously has to get incentive to get him home. So he sells the car. We see him getting his money back for the car and then bringing his dad home. And Fred's totally playing it, still like, oh, I have no idea. What's going on? What's going on? And before I get to that, let me go back. I forgot. I didn't want to read the notes, but I had to go back. One of the I forgot the scene. I can't believe that. But right before, when the doctor's talking to him, when Lamont, remember I said Lamont left and then he sold the car. But right before that, when he talks to the doctor one more time when he's gonna leave, the doctor's like, oh yeah, you know, amnesia and stuff. And he's like, well, what happens? And he's like, we had one just recently. And he's got his arms crossed. He's like, yeah. And he's like, we had one for a couple weeks, you know, amnesia patient and everything. And you're thinking, oh, did they recover? And Lamont's like, well, what happened? Oh, he died. He just said, and then scares the crap out of Lamont, which is even more motivation. That is a top 5 funny, the way he delivers the line and says it. And it's so, yeah, perfect. So now let's get back to it where Fred's home and he's looking around. He's like, I don't want to be in here. I don't want, you know, no, let's go back. And he's talking about the nurses and he wants to get back. He reminds me of like the Marx Brothers or Three Stooges where they want to be around the nurses. Whoop, 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 whoop. And really we know Fred just is trying to make Lamont feel super guilty, which he does, which he always does. And so he comes in and then finally he sees, he's got the thing wrapped and he pulls it off. And he's like, a color television. And he's got the remote and everything and he gives it to him. And he's so excited, and Lamont's happy because he's trying to, he sees his dad happy for the first time in several days, and that's all that mattered to him was, hey, I want my dad happy. Like we said, he's 65, and he got him the TV, so everything's going to end well. And then Fred, being Fred, had to say a dumb comment because he wanted a bigger TV. This is why I say you should have settled for black and white and just been happy, or a color with no remote. He got the color, he got the remote, but he wanted a bigger one. Greedy, right? Greed. And that's typical Fred. And he said, oh, you could have got a bigger one. You didn't spend your money on that car. And that's it. That's when it did it. Now it's over. And Lamont's like, wait a minute. How did you know about that? And Lamont, rightfully so, gets pissed. And now he's like laying into him. I'm surprised that Lamont character didn't grab the remote and take the TV back and say, I'm going to go get a car or something. But instead, he's like, oh, my memory, getting the TV, it's all coming back to me. And Fred does it so well. Where he's like, yeah, it's all coming. Hey, Lamont. He's like, Lamont, my son. The way he totally sells it now. He tries to reverse the whole thing, but Lamont's not buying for it. And Lamont's face is so good. He's like, you did it. You did it to me again. And he's so right. And that's something we see frequently. Later on, you don't see it as much because, as we've mentioned in the comments, and any diehard fan knows, Lamont's character did mellow out. I think they're both good for the show. I personally like the more mellow Lamont. The one where it's like season 4, even 3, 4, where he's still cool. He can still get a little angry, but he's more hip to his dad and more trying to, I mean, he's always hip, but more trying to make life a little easier for his dad, as opposed to season 1 where he can be real hard on his dad. But we see why. Things like this. And it makes for great comedy. Lamont's face and reaction when he's like saying, you did it to me again. It is so funny and so true. And you can feel that emotion where you're like, dang, I feel bad for Lamont, but at the same time, you know, you want Fred to get, at least I do, but you want Fred to get the TV because you want him to have color TV and enjoy his chilling at home with Melvin. Nothing's better than hanging out with your friends, watching TV together, Godzilla, whatever you want to watch. So that's it, and then as it ends, we start the next time where we see Melvin and Fred watching it, and he's like, Melvin went to get up to go do something, and he's like, oh, you don't have to. He's got the remote, and they're like, oh, and Melvin's loving it, and then it won't work, and he's like, what's going on? And they get up and they go to check the TV, and and then they start pounding it. So even the new TV, it's already giving them issues. That sounds like stuff nowadays. You go buy a new appliance, it lasts 3 years. The old appliance lasted 15 or to 20 years. So even back then, it was true. So that's it for TV or not TV. It is a great episode. It's one of my favorites from season 1. Would I put it in my top 20 ever without even thinking about every episode? Possibly. It's the first one we've come across other than Coffins for Sale, which would be in my top 20. It's probably the only one other than Coffins for Sale and maybe The Piano Mover, which is coming up soon. That's one of my all-time favorites. I cannot wait for that one, just like Coffins for Sale. So I'm excited to talk about that one and go over all the facts and interesting things on it. But with this one, I would have to think about it because it is very funny. It is very well written. And even the side characters have great lines. And Melvin, like I said, when you have a select amount, Coffins for Sale was his debut. So when you have a small amount, it's so good to have Melvin. And so this might be in there, top 20. I'm not for sure, but it is without a doubt in probably my top 3 of season 1. So that is it. Now, familiar faces. Let's get to familiar faces. The only one really was, his name is Peter Bonares. He was the doctor, the actor who played the doctor, Peter Bonares. Very funny, very good role. He had a great memorable scene to where anytime I see a hospital in Sanford Son, I think of this doctor. Good job with the acting by the doctor, by Peter. Played the doctor. This is what else he's been at. The Bob Newhart Show. I think I remember seeing him in that. His character, his personality would fit great with the Bob Newhart Show. Murphy Brown, don't remember. These shows are movies I've seen, but I don't remember him in that. Murphy Brown, Police Academy 6, and he did Man on the Moon. I think that's the Jim Carrey one in 1999. Great movie. I really enjoyed that one. But so he's done other things from movies to shows. He probably had a huge list as well. As we've seen a lot of these actors, when they have these parts, that's what they are. They can be in 50 movies as small side roles. So, but he was great. He's a familiar face if you recognize him. I mostly know him from Sanford and Son. So that is it, familiar faces. Fun facts. Now, we already talked about the first one where I said it was Arthur Matthews, where we talked about his wife, and we know we can get a visual. So when we hear him, we don't know what his wife looks like. We just know, we knew he was ugly. We knew she was ugly from this. And then we know what his son looks like when we see in Card Sharps in season 2. Great one. That's funny right there. That was a fun fact. And then another fun fact. This is interesting. I thought this was really cool. I don't know the episode names of Steptoe and Son, all of them. I just assumed a lot of them were the same. They're not. Some of them, like Cross Swords, that I think that's one of the few that matches show for show. But did you know TV or not TV is a Shakespeare quote, right? To be or not to be. So TV or not TV. Now, the original Steptoe and Son did not do that for this. Sanford and Son did, but it's almost a callback to mimicking them because they did the same thing, Steptoe and Son, in the episode with A Matter of Life and Breath. We called it A Life and Breath in America. They called it To TV or Not TV, which is the exact same thing. That's probably why they didn't call that, because they were going to work with the TV or not TV, as opposed to they already did TB for tuberculosis, which happened. They thought they had it, and that went, I got it, Pop, I got it. But Steptoe and Son did TV or not TV. So that is a little cool twist, fun fact, just something you might not know about the episode. That does it here for this week's episode breakdown, TV or not TV. Thank you very much, guys. Continue to like, continue to subscribe, and continue to enjoy anything I get. It's weird, we keep growing. I love it. And I'm putting out shorts. Sometimes I still will go back to putting Sanford and Son clip shorts. But like I said, the last time I did one, it got copyrighted. And they blocked it literally less than 24 hours. I have a couple other ones up there that are not. I'm trying to find ways to put a twist on it to where it's still I can teach something on it or just show something funny. But then all of my other YouTube shorts are things that are breaking down from this, or some fun facts you might not know as well. We will sneak those in because those aren't going to get copyrighted. So that's why you see it that way. Thank you, everybody. Continue to comment, share your thoughts, share what you liked about this episode or something I might have missed. And stay tuned. We got Fun Fact Friday coming up again this week. Go check out last week's if you did not. It's all about Don Bexley. To me, it's my favorite one we've done. We've done Red Fox one. Some of the stuff I already knew before. We've done Damon Wilson. The Red Fox one I really liked, but I loved doing the Bubba Bexley, or the Don Bexley, for some reason. I think it's because there was so many facts in there that I didn't know about. I love researching these guys, and I really like what I found out about Don Bexley, his personal life. So if you do not know, go watch that episode, or at least skip to the second half, because there's a lot of good stuff after Sanford and Son, especially the person he was. So thanks, guys. Talk to you later. Have a great rest of your week. Peace. Oh, one more thing. This was filmed on 9/11, so hey, man, go watch. If you have not watched anything on 9/11, we all lived it. If you're watching it and you're old enough to, we all lived through it. But I remember when I went through with 9/11, I was at home. I had just quit my job, And I remember after I quit my job, I woke up. My wife now, but at the time was just my girlfriend. She called and said, "Hey, look what's going on." The first tower was hit. Then I'm watching it and I see the second tower, and it was just disbelief. It was numb, disbelief, because you're not even seeing it. We're still not there. And then you felt the impact, and then you feel it. Watching it, I rewatched several videos. There's one, a National Geographic's called The South Tower. Watch that. It brought me to tears. The emotion, some things I never even knew I learned, and it's just so gut-wrenching and so tragic and so a miracle. It's from all the people that did survive and who went through that. So in remembrance, go watch anything on it. Like I said, The South Tower, National Geographic's, look that up on YouTube, go watch it. 9/11, man, for all the people, for all the soldiers, thank you so much. All the police, the firemen, and who are still doing it now, facing that kind of things. Much love and appreciation. So yeah, I should have said that at the beginning. I'm sorry. Thank you guys very much. Enjoy Sanford and Son, and remember, let's enjoy every moment we have on this earth, because we never know when it's our last breath, our last episode, our last anything. Let's make the most of what we have. Talk to you guys later. Peace.